This time, it can be different. It has to.
In this video, I'm going to summarize the plot of the Resident Evil 4 remake and also bring up the changes from the original and also discuss certain things that I really loved about the game, so you can kind of think of it as a summary and a review. When it comes to the narrative of the Resident Evil 4 remake, the plot points are basically identical to the original. Leon Kennedy is now 6 years removed from the Raccoon City incident and is now a special agent. His mission is to rescue Ashley Graham, the US president's daughter, from a dangerous cult known as the Los Illuminados. He liaisons with two Spanish police officers, one who immediately gets captured and killed off screen because he notices a ganado and promptly follows him without assistance, and the other gets captured while Leon goes to investigate. You can technically kind of blame Leon or the police officers because they were both really lazy right here. It was a really strange way to kick off the plot. On his search for Ashley, though, Leon will encounter and rescue Luis Serra, a former Umbrella researcher whose past ties him directly to the Los Illuminados and its leader, Osman Sadler. Luis shares the same backstory and personality as he did in the original Resident Evil 4, but in this retelling, Luis expresses his guilt due to unintentionally having a hand in strengthening the Plaga parasite. It's a really nice touch that allows players to empathize with Luis, and I found him far more charming here than I did in the original. After finding Luis, Leon is ambushed by Father Torres Mendez, fanatical priest for the Los Illuminados, and immediately gets knocked out. He's then infected with the Las Plaga and connects with Osman Sadler, albeit for a brief moment. When Leon awakens, he and Luis kill an infected ganado and go their separate ways. And by separate ways, I mean Luis kind of fucked him over. Leon then progresses through the village and finds himself at the village chief's house. He then gets his ass beat again by Mendez, but is saved by Ada. As he leaves the house, he sees a wolf caught in a trap and saves the good boy, as he did in the original. Now, a lot of people were upset because it was rumored that the wolf was dead or wasn't going to make an appearance, but fret not. He's there and just waiting for Leon near the village chief's house. As Leon progresses back to the village with the local church key, the villagers detonate a tower that blocked the path, and this is a very cool swerve from the original and surprised the hell out of me. When Leon arrives at the church where Ashley is held, he discovers it's locked and must make his way across the lake to find the key. Here's where you encounter Lago, whose fight has not really changed for better or worse, and if you enjoyed it, great, but I found this fight to be fairly stale. But after dispatching Lago, Leon makes his way across the lake and finally comes face to face with a mutated villager. This is a pretty badass scene, and Leon sums up the affair perfectly.
What the fuck?
Leon discovers a cavern that holds the key to the church. To acquire the key, he must find two stone heads to place on the palms, and this will unlock the mechanism holding the key. The puzzles require the player to pay attention to the drawings found in the caves, and then select those symbols to unlock the gates where the stone heads are kept. It's a short, open area section, but pretty fun, and do your best to actually look around the lake because you're going to find some pretty cool stuff. Golden eggs. I love them. This does an excellent job of showing off the lighting and how it feels like RE4 is embracing more of the horror elements that the original sacrificed in favor of action. Once Leon acquires the key, he then makes his way back to the church, but in his way is a mutated behemoth known as El Gigante, but this monstrosity is defeated with the help of a good doggo. This boss fight remains unchanged, but it really didn't need much variation. It's a nice introduction to a much larger enemy who you're going to see a couple times. When Leon makes his way back to the church, he discovers Ashley on the second floor. She attacks him, but quickly decides to trust him because Ganados storm the church in search of her. Here's where we see the first effects of the Las Plagas virus because the chanting by the Ganado forced Leon and Ashley to experience headaches and blurred vision. It's clear that the virus is spreading, and they need to work quickly or they will succumb to it. They make their way back to the village but are chased by a mob of ganado who force them to a cabin where Luis just so happens to be taking refuge. This is one of the most thrilling sequences early in the game. It's very familiar to the original, but it forces the player to be resourceful. You're going to want to board up the windows as soon as possible to ensure that you are fighting the least amount of enemies. Otherwise, you're going to burn through ammo and resources quickly. I recommend switching between the first and second floors to separate enemies and group them on the stairs when you have a chance. Save any explosive that you have for the heavy ganado and then use your shotgun or your rifle to finish him. This intense but fun sequence ends when Ashley opens the door and helps Luis and Leon flee. Once outside, Luis separates from the group and meets up with Ada Wong, whom he happens to have an existing deal with to get a sample of the Las Plaga in exchange for his escape. Now, this was primarily played out in the original via documents found around the castle. It's really nice to see it visualized here. Louise tried to charm Ada, but to no avail. She only has eyes for Leon and his lustrous hair. Anyway, Leon and Ashley fight their way to the quarry and eventually to a warehouse that just so happens to house our favorite father, Torres Mendez. This time around, instead of just slapping Leon, Mendez mutates and a pretty solid boss fight begins. The first phase is really manageable with easy openings and long evasion windows. This is because you're able to transition from the first floor and the second floor via a ladder. When you see him charge up, he's looking to sweep the second floor. It's unblockable, so just jump down, and once that finishes, head back up and continue to do damage. Once the first phase ends, he just decides he no longer needs legs, and it's time to get good at ducking because he will launch fiery steel beams at you that do so much damage, so do your best not to get hit. Eventually, he'll try to throw explosive barrels, and this will be your opening to do good damage and force him to a lower section. Here's where Mendez might piss you off because he will lunge multiple times, so time your shots accordingly and pay attention to the button prompts on screen. Eventually, he goes down, and his eye just kind of pops out of his head. It's free treasure, so don't ask. Ashley breaks a window and helps Leon escape out of the burning warehouse. They make their way to a massive castle, and here's where you're going to notice that no truck is coming to kill you, which I didn't mind, but I won't lie, I kind of missed it. Once inside the castle, and after you fight your way through, you're introduced to the redesigned and beautiful Ramon Salazar, and it is not the glow-up he needed. He is as annoying as ever and a rude host because he immediately throws cult members your way, and this is the point where I believe you need to be locked in when it comes to combat because ammo depletes really quickly and gunpowder is dropped in smaller quantities. As Leon and Ashley start to make their way through the castle, you'll run into a new mutation of the Las Plaga, in which the mutated head has a giant mouth and can hang from the ceiling. These take an insane amount of damage and will one-shot you if you do not parry. I recommend using flashbangs to conserve ammo because it's a one-shot kill. Cool new enemy, but annoying as hell when there are multiple of them. Now, it wouldn't be a Resident Evil game if the protagonist didn't separate because of shaky footing. As you search through the castle, Leon falls to the floor and ends up fighting the Wolverine cosplay enthusiast, the Garradors. These bad boys are still blind and still do massive damage with their claws, but because you can crouch now, it's easy to maneuver around for an opening. I never thought they were too difficult of a fight because baiting them is pretty easy, and a Magnum makes short work of them, so there's that. After this fight, Leon and Ashley reunite, and it's here where we get to see Ashley momentarily succumb to its influence and almost kill Leon. It's a really nice touch and something that was unexpected. Unless you watch the trailers, then you spoiled it for yourself. She ends up separating from Leon, and he has to make his way deeper into the castle to find her. To progress, he needs to find the Crimson Flame, a lantern that is being held by one of the cult leaders. In the original game, these were just really beefier cultists, but here their chanting not only momentarily stuns Leon, but can force the Ganado to mutate. And it leads to a very hectic sequence. Once Leon comes out on top and mostly traumatized from all the tentacles and mouth with all those teeth in him, he makes his way to the second floor of the castle where he meets up with Ada. He's not exactly happy to see her, knowing that she's more than likely working for the wrong side, but Ada wants to help Leon anyway, and asks that he let Ashley go because of the infection. Now Leon persists because quitting isn't in his vocabulary, and he heads deeper in. He encounters a Plaga parasite who happens to jump on the back of a Ganado, and this forces that poor bastard to dead sprint at Leon and rapidly attack him. If you happen to knock that enemy down, the Plaga will detach, but it's not dead. You must kill it, otherwise it will lunge at you. Very cool, also terrifying. Please don't mind the fact that I used the Magnum to kill it. It needed to die. Leon eventually makes his way to the ramparts and is interrupted by an armored El Gigante, who is happy to sit back and throw bundles of rocks like fastballs at Leon. The Beast Titan from Attack on Titan would be damn proud. The armored El Gigante is defeated by the way of Cannonball, eat that, and Leon is then free to make his way to the garden, where he finds a recovering Ashley. She asks Leon to stay away because she's afraid she'll hurt him again, but he believes in the opposite because that's what heroes do. They'll need to navigate the maze to get inside the castle, and upon doing so, they have to find 3 heads of a chimera to open up a chamber. Once Leon and Ashley place the heads on the chimera statue, they are immediately ambushed and separated, just like the original game. Ashley sprints out of the room, while Leon kills damn near every one of her pursuers in a really badass cutscene.
Run. Now!
Ashley finds herself in an abandoned library and must solve a number of puzzles to get to the lower levels, which house a stone slab that will help her open up the door to the catwalk so that Ashley can help Leon escape. I thought this entire section was awesome. It was a nice showcase of the updated lighting, and it was really cool to kind of get a chase scene going with the Armadura. I had a lot of fun playing it. After Ashley throws down the key to Leon, she's abducted by one of Salazar's verdugos. Leon, frustrated and without leads, gets contacted by Ada, who tips him in that something big is happening in the throne room. He makes his way outside and finds himself face to face with the Novistadors, flying humanoid bugs who will become the bane of your existence for a short period of time. Seriously, I hate these things. Leon fights his way to the throne room, where he sees Ashley being forced to drink a black liquid, which expedites the Las Plaga infection. He is pinned down by a verdugo and then thrown into a pit on Salazar's orders. He catches himself on a chain like an action superstar and then makes his way through the pit and toward the mines. During this time, he encounters one of the verdugo, which, like the original game, requires you to freeze them to do damage because otherwise, you're rarely going to get a hit on them. They are incredibly durable and fast and tough to bring down. This is a time fight. You are waiting for an elevator to activate, so it's your choice as to whether or not you want to put it down. Me personally, I wasn't going to let that shit slide when he was pinning me down, so I decided to kill him. Once Leon is in the elevator, he collapses as the Las Plagas virus is progressing rapidly. Luis, coming practically out of nowhere for the save, injects him with a suppressant that will momentarily slow down the infection. Leon and Luis make a push through the mines, doing a bit of minecart racing and fighting Ganado, El Gigantes, and Novistadors until they reach a service elevator that brings them near the castle. Unfortunately, this is where Luis's story is cut short as Major Krauser, Leon's former commander, appears and throws a knife and hits Luis square in the back. In the original, Luis dies at the castle by a verdugo when he gets brutally impaled, but I like this change because it provides the player motivation to dislike Krauser. Krauser reveals that he's working for Sadler, and he and Leon engage in an epic knife fight. There's no quick time events like the original, it's just a lot of parrying and knockdowns. Krauser eventually gets the upper hand, but is shot at by a dying Luis just as he's about to finish off Leon. He then escapes, and Luis leaves Leon with a key to his research lab, which has a device that will help remove the Las Plaga from both Leon and Ashley. Leon presses on with a heavy heart and fights his way to and up the clock tower, and while at the top, he comes across Salazar moving Ashley. Krauser receives Ashley from Salazar, and then the short little bugger decides to shit-talk Leon, but Leon cuts the conversation short and shoots Salazar multiple times, knocking him off the platform. I thought that was hilarious. Now, obviously, Salazar isn't dead and returns mutated, and an awesome boss fight begins. This is a massive change from the original and is so much fun. Salazar is pretty fast and does a ton of damage. Move around the platforms accordingly and never stop, because if you do, he will dive bomb down and it could kill you. I thought this was the biggest change to any of the boss fights and was incredibly badass. Once Salazar is defeated, Leon heads to the docks and with the help of Ada, makes his way to Sadler's island where Ashley is being kept. When he comes across Ashley, she is locked behind a door that requires a level 3 key card, and this can be found deep in the labs. And here's where we find the regenerators. And yes, this segment is terrifying. They are fast and will lunge at you. You can parry to knock off their arms, but this only upsets them, so keep moving or you will die. Don't waste ammo, just progress as quickly as possible to level up the key cards. Once Leon escapes the regenerators with the level 3 keycard, he finds Ashley and injects her with a suppressant. She awakens, and they must fight their way through different factory areas to reach a lift that will take them to the main facility. Upon arriving, they find this huge amber rock that houses the Las Plaga. Sadler arrives, he waxes poetic about his plan for a new world order, and forces Ashley to his side by utilizing his abilities to progress the infection. Ashley tries her best to resist. She's actually a really great shot, but ends up leaving with Sadler as his influence is too great. Leon has to fight his way through the island, once again, and ends up dueling with Major Krauser. And his justification for joining Sadler isn't from the US government covering up a clandestine operation that he and Leon took part in, but for power, which, okay, sure. They end up fighting, and this is exactly like the original, but once again, no QTEs, just pairing and two people caught in the moment. And by caught in the moment, I mean a lot of shit talking. It's beautiful. You also get Krauser's knife upon winning, which is really useful because of its durability and damage. After Krauser's demise, Leon makes his way to the altar with the help of Mike, the helicopter pilot, the GOAT himself, who blows up shit in spectacular fashion. He unfortunately meets an untimely demise like in the original because Sadler is a dick and we can't have nice things. I mean, come on, Capcom. We could have changed this, right? Mike was a hero. Leon makes his way to the altar and with the help of Ada, distracts Sadler enough to get Ashley. At this point, Leon has barely any strength or control and just does enough to get Ashley to Luis's lab. There, he removes the parasite from Ashley, but then passes out. He wakes up in the operating chair parasite-free, however, because Ashley moved him and removed the virus herself. Go, Ashley. They exit Luis's lab and set up for the final showdown with Sadler. The Sadler boss fight is mostly retooled because of the different locations you can drop down to and get up to, and the speed of the mutated Sadler himself. I thought it was a really fun and engaging fight. I will say, though, if you roll in there with an upgraded kit, especially like the Red 9 and a couple of Magnum rounds, you can probably make quick work of him. I loved and hated that he summons the Notificadores during the fight because he's too big of a bitch to fight you himself, even though he is a giant friggin' monster. After a few cycles of destroying his knee eyeballs and stabbing him in the head, I did not fucking stutter. He mutates further, pissing Leon off, and with the help of Ada and a special rocket launcher, kills Sadler. Ada ends up taking the Las Plagas sample and departs in a chopper, but not before throwing Leon a key to a jet ski. Also, a very cute teddy bear.
Cute.
As Leon and Ashley progress to the dock, you get to see the after effects of the Las Plagas without its primary host. They just writhe in pain before dying, and it's brutal. Also, they kind of deserve it, let's be real. Anyway, at the dock, Leon and Ashley make their daring escape on jet ski. I really thought this was an improved section for sure, and once outside, Ashley asks if Leon would like to be a part of her security detail. He, of course, politely declines. I thought this was a really fun moment. You then get a little special cutscene with Ada, who's seen communicating with her benefactor, which so happens to be Albert Wesker, setting up for Resident Evil 5. I'm not going to lie, I can't wait for that to come out, and I do hope that Chris is punching boulders, because that shit is canon. Please keep that in, Capcom. And that does it for the RE4 Remake's narrative. Overall, I like the minor adjustments Capcom made. They cleaned up a couple of things, specifically with Luis and Krauser. Luis has a far bigger impact on the narrative, and even though Krauser's motivation is paper thin still, it is nice that they try to justify his inclusion and that he's more than just a random figure from Leon's past. Sadler is also far more threatening because the power of the host parasite is showcased, and they do that often throughout the game to kind of give Sadler that big, high and mighty feel. I really love that. The things that were discussed in documentation in the original actually have visual presence in the remake, and that makes the narrative far more cohesive and understandable. Now look, it's still B-movie material, but it's a damn good B-movie. As for the game itself, this is probably my early game of the year. I know there's a lot to come. I get that, but this game was one of the most thrilling experiences that I can remember in the past couple of years. It was a game that just absolutely engaged you from the jump. It made you feel capable, though, when things got tough, when things got dire. I love the fact that I was scraping by sometimes, and I think that there aren't that many games out there that make me feel that way. So the Resident Evil 4 remake was fantastic. I recommend you buy the game. If you're watching this video, you probably bought it already. Leave a comment below about how you feel about the game, things that you liked about it, things that you didn't like. Do not disrespect Luis. You know I love that man, and I'm pretty sure everyone did too. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I'm Ken from Pixelated Thoughts, and I will talk to you next time. Take it easy, everyone.